with the spirit of his mouth, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming.
So now this means the man will be around at the coming of the Lord, and that is when the Lord is going to destroy him. Let's go now to Daniel chapter 11, and we'll begin reading at verse 31, because Jesus told you that Daniel the prophet spoke about this abomination. Now we understand what time this abomination will be on the scene, at the coming of the Lord here. Let's pick it up now in Daniel chapter 11, and we're going to just skip a little bit here. We're going to first read verse 31, just so you can see abomination of desolation. Then we'll skip down to verse 36. Daniel chapter 11, and read verse 31. 11 and 31. Okay, go ahead and read.
And arms shall stand on his part, and they shall pollute the sanctuary of strength, and shall take away the daily sacrifice, and they shall place the abomination that maketh desolate.
Now he said, we're not really dealing with this abomination desolation, so that's not why I'm not going to bother to explain all of this. But nevertheless, he said, and then they would place the abomination of desolation. Now Paul told you about this man that was going to sit in the temple and declare himself to be God. Paul did not make that up, and he was not the one that came up with that. It was already written here in this 11th chapter of Daniel. Skip down to verse 36 and continue reading. And
the king shall do according to his will.
And yes, he is a king. He has his own kingdom. Now, however small it might be, it may be small, but nevertheless, its influence is wide. You understand what I'm saying? Its influence is throughout all nations. Right. Make no mistake about it. Now, he said, and he said here, and the king shall do according to his will. Go ahead and read on.
And he shall exalt himself and magnify himself above every god.
Well, that's what Paul said, isn't it? He's going to exalt himself and magnify himself above all that is called God or that is worship. Go ahead and read on.
And shall speak marvelous things against the God of gods, and shall prosper till the indignation be accomplished. For that is determined shall be done.
Go ahead.
Neither shall he regard the God of his fathers, nor the desire of women, nor regard any God, for he shall magnify himself above all.
Now, Paul wrote that he was going to sit in the temple, didn't he? Let's skip down to verse 45 and find out where this temple will be. Skip down, read that 45th verse. Go ahead and read it.
And he shall plant the tabernacles of his palace between the seas in the glorious holy mountain.
Now, where's the glorious holy mountain? That is Jerusalem, isn't it? Right. Now, that's where his tabernacle going to set up at. Now he's sitting there in Rome, but then he's going to move his headquarters to Jerusalem. He's going to plant his tabernacle between the seas in the glorious holy mountain. Go ahead and read on.
Yet he shall come to his end, and none shall help him.
Well, that's the same thing Paul wrote, didn't it?
Right.
But that the Lord would destroy him with the brightness of his coming. So I just want you to understand we're reading about the same time here. Long before Paul wrote about it, even before Jesus quoted it in Matthew, it was already written in Daniel. Now, let's go on into the, let's go on into the 12th chapter here. And I began reading at verse 1. Again, so we can see what time we are dealing with here. Verse 1, go ahead and read.
And at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince which standeth for the children of thy people. And there shall be a time of trouble such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. And at that time thy people shall be delivered, every one that shall be found written in the book.
So now we understand what time we are dealing with here, don't we? We understand this is the last time. There ain't one time of trouble like never before or shall ever be again. And that is what Jesus said in the 24th chapter of Matthew. Right. The event leading up to his coming. Go on into verse 5 now, and let's just see how long the Bible said this tribulation is going to last. Go ahead and read.
Then I, Daniel, looked, and behold, there stood other two, the one on this side of the bank of the river, and the other on that side of the bank of the river. And one said to the man clothed in linen, which was upon the waters of the river, how long shall it be to the end of these wonders?
Now he asked the question, how long will it be? You know, he said at this time of trouble like never before or ever again. And now he asked the question, how long will it be till the end of these wonders? And listen to the answer. Go ahead and read.
And I heard the man clothed in linen, which was upon the waters of the river, when he held up his right hand and his left hand unto heaven, and swear by him that liveth forever, that it shall be for a time.
Now, time equal to 1 year. Go ahead and read.
Time.
Times plural equal to 2 years. Go ahead.
And a half.
And a half a time, a half a year. 3.5 years. That's how long the tribulation is going to last. Everybody's telling you a 7 year. But God himself said it will last for 3.5 years. That is the only point I wanted to make here. Let's go now to back to Matthew chapter 24. Because we're just looking at the events that's leading up to this first of the last 3 battles. Let's go back to Matthew chapter 24, and we'll begin reading at verse 29. Matthew 24, and we'll begin at verse 29. 24 and 29. 24 and 29. Okay, go ahead and read it, bro.
Immediately after the tribulation of those days.
Now we got the tribulation. It'll last some 3.5 years. And then he said immediately after the tribulation of those days, this is what will happen. Go ahead and read.
Shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light.
Go ahead.
And the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. And then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn. And they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory.
So now we got the Son of Man coming here. You know, we got the sun that's not going to give a light. And the moon not going to give a light. All of that's going to happen. Then we going to see the sign of the Son of Man coming in heaven. Let's go and let's go to Acts chapter 1. And we'll begin reading at verse 9. Acts 1, and we're going to pick it up at verse 9. Now this is when Jesus was about to ascend back to the Father here, and he's going to say something here. You know, his disciples, they were standing there watching him ascend back into heaven. Then the angel came and asked him, you know, why are y'all watching him ascend back into heaven? And listening to the answer that the angels gave to them. You know, I'm taking you here so that when we get somewhere else, you'll understand what time we are dealing with here. Sometimes you have to understand one thing before you can understand another. And if you understand that, then it will make it easier for you to understand the next thing. Let's start reading here at Acts 1 and begin reading at verse 9. Acts 1 and 9. Go ahead and read.
And when he had spoken these things, while they beheld, he was taken up, and a cloud received him out of their sight.
Now, you know, they was asking him, would he at this time return the kingdom unto Israel? And he says, not for you to know. You just go back to Jerusalem and wait until you get some power from on high. Then go forth and preach the gospel unto all the nations. Now, after he had spoken these things, then all of a sudden a cloud took him up out of their sight. Go ahead and read.
And while they looked steadfastly toward heaven as he went up, behold, 2 men stood by them in white apparel.
Now, these 2 men here, these were angels. And they stood by him in white apparel. Go ahead and read them by his disciples. Go ahead and read.
Which also said, Ye men of Galilee, why stand ye gazing up into heaven? This same Jesus which is taken up from you into heaven shall so come in like manner as you have seen him go into heaven.
Now notice what the angel said. The same one you saw go into heaven, that's the same one that will return in like manner. You know, unlike some people teach that, you know, somebody's coming in the spirit of Jesus. No, the same one that went to heaven,
that's right.
That is the same one that's going to return in like manner as you saw him go into heaven. He went to heaven in the cloud, and when he returned in the cloud.
That's right.
Show you now where he left from. Go ahead and read.
12. Then returned they unto Jerusalem from the mount called Olivet, which is from Jerusalem a Sabbath day's journey.
Now let's go to Zechariah 14. Now that we understand that, now you'll understand who it is that we're reading about here in this 14th chapter of Zechariah. That is why I took you here first, so you will understand when Jesus returned, he left from the Mount of Olives, and the angel said, the same one that you saw go into heaven, that is the same one that you will see return in like manner. Let's go and look at that return. Let's start reading here in Zechariah chapter 14, and we'll begin at verse 1. 14 and 1. 14 and 1. Okay, go ahead and read.
Behold, the day of the Lord cometh, and thy spoil shall be divided in the midst of thee. For I will gather all nations against Jerusalem to battle.
Now notice what right away it says, I'm going to gather all nations against Jerusalem to battle. So now we dealing with the coming of the Lord here. Right. And notice here we got battle going on here, don't we? He said, you know, I'm going to gather all nations against the ruler and